Word tonight from mob hitman turned informant John Veasey. He spoke exclusively to our Dave Schratweiser. Dave and the Enquirer's George Anastasia have the final word on Veasey's past, his future, and his impact on the local mob.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mob Talk. I'm Dave Schratweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia with the Philadelphia Enquirer.
George, the final word this week from John Veasey, at least the final word for now, and had some interesting things to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is John Veasey, I think, being John Veasey and getting a lot of things off his chest, and I think he did it very well.
Former mob enforcer and hitman John Veasey knows his way around power tools and heavy equipment. But these days, instead of using a drill to torture people, he's become a real handyman around his big home, thousands of miles from his hometown of Philadelphia.
John's here, power tools and all, but I work with them now, unlike before.
Veasey drives fast cars and motorcycles, even flies in jets after recent success as the manager of 5 local car dealerships. But it wasn't always this way. Veasey made a name for himself back in the 90s with his fists, his gun, and sheer terror when he came calling to pick up the mob's protection money.
And I had a street sweeper and an Uzi, 2 guns. And I threw 2 rolls of quarters down. I said, call some more people, there ain't enough of you. I got too many bullets. And they said, whoa, 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 whoa.
The 47-year-old Veasey mesmerized a federal jury during the racketeering trial of mob boss John Stanfa back in 1995. That's when he confessed to 2 murders and to using a power drill to torture a man who threatened to kill him, a mob associate named Joe Fudge.
He's out to kill me, telling everybody on the street he's going to kill me. I put the drill in his hair like, we just pull out big clunks. And then I started drilling his knees. Well, I did his elbows first. And then I did his hips. And then I did his knee, and my drill bit broke, in the jeans. And I got really mad about that, I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I would doubt that he's still in danger.
Veasey's testimony was so real, so raw, it took down mob boss John Stanfa, who went to prison for 5 life terms. 30 other wise guys also went to jail. Defense lawyer Howard Popper remembers Veasey all too well.
The stories that he told couldn't be anything but the truth.
Compelling. I mean, the jury seemed to really lock on to what he was saying.
Absolutely. When you've got somebody, he's an interesting character, whether you like him or you hate him, he's an interesting character. And I think that you hit it on the head. I think the jury just really liked him, sucked it up, and knew that he was what he was appearing to be.
Veasey says his mob days are behind him. He's got a new life, a new wife, and children to take care of. He also has success, and he looks back at his life in the mob this way.
I'm saying that you can change, and you don't have to wait to get indicted to do it. I think if anybody walked away from the life, the feds would probably leave him out of an indictment, but how often does that happen?
But ever the wise guy, Veasey still likes to take a few jabs at the local mob.
You ain't good fellas. You're not mafia. You're not La Cosa Nostra. I don't even think you're a street gang personally.
Veasey says he's quite aware that another round of mob indictments is on the way, and he thinks his one-time fellow wise guys should wise up.
Being in the mafia, there is no risk. You know you're going down. There's no going up. They're coming after you, and they're not going to stop. They got countless money. They keep printing. And when you're in the mafia, guess where you got to be? You got to be in the street. Because if you're not in the street making that money, ain't nobody going to bring it to you. So you got to be out there, which means you got to get photographed, and they got to listen to you talk because you got to call people. So there's no way to win.
As for his future, Veasey claims he has no plans to return to Philadelphia or his mob lifestyle. He says he owes it to his family to stay straight. He also owes it to his brother Billy, who convinced him to turn his life around, then lost his own life at the hands of 2 mob assassins the day John Veasey was to take the witness stand against the mob.
They might have thought they killed him, but they didn't. He's still here. And everything I accomplished is through him. Every single thing is for him, in some way with him. And one day I'll get to go to a cemetery and I'll get to put flowers there properly.
All right, George, let's start with the infamous Joe Fudge drilling situation. Veasey says Fudge is out there saying he's going to kill him. He wants him dead, so he has somebody bring him to his house, and he starts the story that really stuck with the jury, I think, in the Stanfa case.
Yeah, this is where he talks about taking a power drill and kind of popping him with it. said pieces of his hair came out and stuff. Joe Fudge, I think, has a different version of how it all went down.
You and I both talked to Joe Fudge, at least via the telephone.
Yeah.
What's his version?
Well, I mean, it's almost like a point of honor with him is that he said he never penetrated the skin. He didn't do what he said he did. And, you know, neither one of us were there. The only people I think who really know are John Veasey and Joe Fudge. Yeah. And that's where it stands.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. I think he raised it why he never was brought into court to kind of rebut John Veasey, because it sounds like he could at least give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, and that would have been on the defense if they wanted to rebut that. I mean, in the greater scheme of things, that was a piece of color in the trial, and it gave some character to Veasey and who he was. But in terms of the crimes and what was committed, it wasn't a big issue.
Okay, Veasey had some interesting thoughts on life in the mob, and basically said, you can get out of it before you get indicted. My advice would be get out.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who lived it, and he went through it all. And I think it's a very realistic interpretation of where it is and what it's like. And, you know, I mean, John Veasey made the point, and I think Maria Merlino made this point on a cell phone conversation that was taped one time. She said, you know, you end up dead or in jail. That's what this is about.
Took a couple little pot shots at the end, too. You know, Mafia, you know, Goodfellas, you know, La Cosa Nostra.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's indicative of what's going on down here. Certainly this organized crime family isn't what it was back in the 50s, what it was in the 60s. It wasn't what it was when Veasey was in it. I mean, John Veasey probably never would have been a made guy in the Angelo Bruno era, but he became a made guy in this situation when it was no longer organized crime, it was kind of disorganized crime.
Yeah, Howard Popper's comments, he was one of the defense attorneys at the trial, his comments were that he really stuck with the jury, that the jury kind of ate up his testimony and wanted to soak in every word, and he said because it was the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what John had going for him. One, he was telling the truth, and two, it was like he was sitting on a corner talking to you. That's the way it came across. It wasn't embellished, he wasn't a phony, unlike Phil Coletti, who wanted to be the tough guy hitman, and his stuff didn't ring true. John was John. John Veasey being John, and that's the way it played.
Okay, kind of poignant moment at the end. The last part of the piece, he talks about his brother. Said everything I do, everything I've accomplished is for him, with him, and kind of through him, and that he hopes someday to come back here to Philadelphia and pay the proper respect at his brother's grave.
Yeah, I mean, I found that ironic. I mean, you know, the mafia organized crime is supposedly the family. This was the real family. This is what family is about. And I think this lives with John. That whole Cosa Nostra stuff, that's by the boards. But the blood connection to Billy, that's his family, and that's what he's about.
All right, George, that's the final chapter on John Veasey, at least for now. Your thoughts on him as a witness, as a mobster, and as John Veasey now?
I think as a witness, he was one of the best that I ever saw in court. As a gangster, he was a legitimate tough guy when he was out on the streets. And as a person, I think he's one of the few guys that has actually turned his life around in that situation.
At least he's given it a chance.
Exactly.
Okay, that's it for Mob Talk this week. We'll see you next week.